I am so excited to welcome you not only to Jacksonville, but to the launching of the podcast called The Covenant, more specifically, the Sister Covenant. And yes, I did say sister. What is the covenant, the Sister Covenant? It is a circle of friends, my friends for 20, 30, 40 plus years, your friends, all of our friends, coming together in a safe space at a time such as this. We as women of color, we are counted on to nurture our families, our children, our significant others, our spouses, our community, our corporate boardrooms, and everything in between. But who fills our cup? I think about flying, and when we get ready to take off, what is said to us first? Put your oxygen mask on first before you can assist others. And that exactly is what the Sister Covenant is all about. A safe space to encourage, to listen, to cry a little, laugh a lot, but most important, to empower and to fill our cup. Good morning. Great Sunday morning, and welcome back to part 2 of Caring for Aging Parents and Living Well. We have another powerful podcast for you today, and we've had an opportunity to speak with 2 very special guests, and Dr. Ivy is back with us today. So we have some empowering conversations to unpack. But before we do that, as always, I want to thank you. Thank you for supporting the Sister Covenant over the last 14 months and purchasing your beautiful Sister Covenant apparel. Look at it right there on your screen. And if you have not done so, it is not too late to do so. You can purchase your Sister Covenant merchandise for 2022 by going to our website, thesistercovenant.com. And as you know, we support UNCF. It is a terrible thing to waste a mind, and especially our young people's minds. So we support our emergency fund, and every $100 that you spend with us, $10 will go to UNCF. As you know, the coronavirus is still among us, and as my senior pastor would say, it doesn't have control over us. We can meet this moment and have control over it. So at the Sister Covenant, we still promote vaccinations, but vaccinations aren't the only thing. Getting boosted is important. However, the other protocols are also important. Social distancing, proper hygiene, washing your hands, and making sure you are aware of your surroundings and making prudent decisions, and encouraging all your family, friends, and those you love, and even those you don't, to do the same. So at the Sister Covenant, please follow us in our 25 challenge. Yes, we are still challenging you to post a picture or a video on why you got vaccinated. Use the hashtags Powerful Women Get Vaccinated. Together we win. Both hashtags tag at least 3 of your friends and the Sister Covenant. At this time, I want to share another powerful PSA with some of my youngins because today is dedicated to you. I'm Pat Gillum-Sams, the founder and CEO of the Sister Covenant. Powerful women lead, they don't follow. They use their voice as their truth to empower other women as well as protect and lift their family, friends, and elevate entire communities. These bold, brilliant, brave, and beautiful women are wives, mothers, sisters, and friends. My friends for 20, 30, 40 plus years. Newfound friends. I'm so proud to be a part of this powerful sister circle of women using our collective voice to make a difference.
My name is Dr. Courtney Owens. I chose to get vaccinated because as an emergency medicine physician, I've had the unfortunate responsibility of holding the hand of a young, healthy, 30-year-old man as he took his last breath and died of COVID-19. I then had to tell his own mother over the phone that she would never get to hold his hand again. This death and thousands of others could have easily been prevented with vaccinations. Vaccinations are the one thing that have been proven, along with masking and social distancing, to be safe and to be effective at preventing COVID-19. Take responsibility for yourself, for your family, and for your community. Get vaccinated. Strong women get vaccinated. Together, we can.
Hello, I am Whitney Lewis. I'm a senior at the Florida State University. And the reason why I got vaccinated is because this pandemic has heavily impacted my family and I. On June 2020, I unfortunately lost my grandmother and my great uncle. And once we heard about the vaccines coming out, my family and I knew we were ready to get the vaccine. So I was able to get it and no issues occurred, and so did my parents get vaccinated, and we're just very grateful that we were able to receive this, unlike others who weren't able to see this day. So I highly encourage you all to get vaccinated. It keeps you safe and your family safe.
I decided to get vaccinated because I was very eager and excited to get back to normal life. I'm a college student, and I think most people can agree that college is a very important part of your development. And so I was really excited to get back to normal life. And then I also recognize that you cannot win a pandemic or beat a pandemic with a selfish mindset. And I understand that we are all in this together. And ultimately, I believe that powerful women get vaccinated, and we are in this together.
I decided to get vaccinated because I deeply adore and most importantly respect the health of my peers, my colleagues, and people in my community. Powerful women get vaccinated. Together, we win.
Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay Winbush. I am 24 years old. And as a young person living currently in a multi-generational household with parents who are in their 60s and a grandfather who is in his early 90s, I felt like it was necessary to get vaccinated just because of the protection that it offered both me and the people that I care about, that I live with. I know that as people, as citizens in this world, we are all living with this pandemic. And it's important to realize that we are a part of the solution. It's bigger than us, and it's important that we can play our part to get vaccinated and help achieve a solution in a world where COVID-19 has dissipated. So we know that powerful women get vaccinated. Together we win.
I got vaccinated because I saw firsthand how COVID-19 makes the body feel when I tested positive for the virus back in January. I've also had family and friends test positive, some of which have been hospitalized and had to fight for their lives. I want to be safe, I want those around me to be safe, and I want you to be safe as well. Remember, powerful women get vaccinated. Together we win.
My name is Dr. Anita Pettaway Tyler, and I am the medical contributor for the awesome Sister Covenant. I am here to tell you that I would like to encourage you to remain vigilant. We all must. COVID-19 is running rampant in our communities, and so we must do something. The something is prevention. The way to prevent COVID-19 is, number one, to get a vaccination. Millions of people have been vaccinated to date, and the vaccine is safe and effective. The other thing that we can do is to make sure that we're masking. We should wear our mask indoors and also outdoors in crowds where the vaccination status is unknown. And lastly, we can make sure that we continue to practice social distancing. We must do this to prevent COVID-19. We can do this, and together we win. Thank you.
We urge, we beseech, we implore you, we beg you today, right now, in this moment, to remain vigilant. These are uncertain times, and we ask you to encourage everyone you care about and love, and even those you don't, to wear their mask, wash their hands, practice good hygiene, remain socially distant, and get the vaccination. Powerful women get vaccinated. And together we win. I am simply delighted to welcome these two special guests to the Sister Covenant. My dear sister, Terry Stepter. Terry is an executive with GuideWell Florida Blue. She is a corporate procurement senior consultant and so much more. And we'll get into that when we talk in a moment. But I am over the moon excited for her daughter, Jalen Stepter, to also be with us this morning. She is a 5th year pharmacy student at Xavier University in New Orleans. Come on in the Sister Covenant studio, ladies. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How y'all doing?
Good morning.
It's chilly here in Jacksonville. What's the weather like there in New Orleans, Jalen?
It was raining yesterday, but the sun is out now. It's still a little chilly from that rain, but I'm just happy the sun is out now.
Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you. I know you are a busy lady yourself, so we are gonna not take up too much of your time, but we are thrilled to have you with us.
Thank you.
My dear sister Terry, we've been talking about this subject. You and I have been talking about this subject for a bit because you had the blessing to be a caregiver for your beautiful mom. You, as we said in your intro and your bio, will live on the Sister Covenant website. So I'm going to ask my guests to go out and read all about you, but you're a busy woman. You're a corporate executive. You are the mom of this beautiful, beautiful 5th year student, PharmD, future doctor, and you're a consummate volunteer, a servant leader in our community, not just a volunteer, but you're a leader on many fronts, many organizations. But one of your most devoted hats that you wear is as the caregiver of the Patricia Bivens. And I say that with all the love I have in my heart for Pat. So tell us about Pat Bivens and tell us about what that all entails for you.
Wow, Pat. Well, first, let me thank you and the Sister Covenant team for the invitation to have this conversation at a time such as this. Telling you about Pat Bivens, we don't have enough airtime, but she is an amazing role model, my first role model. And to say that she has been active in so many communities is truly an understatement. Moving here from New Orleans after Katrina and then picking up where she left off with so many different social organizations to just be so very active in this community was certainly my first look at, or my role model as what I wanted to be when I grew up. Her legacy and her history of being a leader in not just the communities that she served, but also in government agencies. She led and worked in the Labor Department. She led teams at the EEOC. She's worked tirelessly for churches, both in New Orleans and here in Jacksonville. And she is extremely faithful to our sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And so I cannot tell you how wonderful it is to just be a part of her life. I can't believe that she's my mother sometimes. But I will say that as the years have started to count upward for her, it's been quite different for me because I've only known her as a very strong, super intelligent, caring, loving, independent woman. And so as we start to kind of see the aging journey occur, it's definitely different for me because although always had our personal debates, whether or not the sky was blue or light blue, these are different conversations around the aging journey. And so I think it's that caliber of debate that I know that we're here to talk about, and how I've done that. And I know that it's changed over the years, but I recognize the need for sensitivity and the need for kindness and the need for care as we have those conversations, Pat.
So Terry, you hit on it. Pat is still sharp. She
yes.
is sharp in her dress, unmistakably when she walks in a room, but also still engaging in these organizations in leadership roles. But how are you helping her navigate? And you mentioned having these conversations, and I want to bring you in the conversation, Jalen. Although you're away at college getting your graduate degree, you're in the medical profession. That's where your mindset is. So have you guys sat down as a family? If you have followed our recent conversations with Dr. Ivy, she talks about friendly aging and friendly care to our aging parents. Have you guys had conversations that have taken into account what your mom wants and her desires as we continue? What did you say? The age moving up. I like that. I'll have to adopt that as I think through this for myself.
Sure. So I think, as we looked at it, and it's funny because Jalen and I have been having some conversations about me, and I think Dr. Ivy talked about this. It was so impactful, but taking a look at kind of the decline of some things like mobility, maybe even the need for her independence, the need to be heard, periodic confusion conversations. I think we realized that although always independent and always the boss, there are things that we have to kind of outline and say, where are the hurdles and where do we start to make some additional planning? And I don't know, Jalen, if you want to add on to that.
Yeah. So definitely coming from medical aspect, I've definitely have jumped in where needed when helping care for my mom and also my grandmother. When we were going through rough times with my grandfather, I was there helping sort through their different medications. They may not have remembered or what one medication was for rather than another. So I kind of sat down with them and helped them kind of sort through that. And I went with them with their doctor's appointments to help guide them through those as well. But as far as my mom, I'm also there just for some, not just her care, but also for her motivational and her strength support to kind of help her. Me being here in New Orleans, there's not much that I can do physically for my grandmother with her being in Florida. So I try to be there for my mom and giving her that strength and making sure that she is healthy with her care, making sure that she continues to get herself checked out whenever she may feel a little sick. She tends to push it through and be strong because she has to be there for my grandmother. But I always want to make sure that my mom is still taking care of herself, and any medications that she has, making sure those are staying up to date and things like that.
So, Jalen, tell us about your relationship with your grandmother in particular. I know you have a special bond, and you guys, including your sister, Terry, you all are a strong tribe. So, have you had the opportunity to sit down maybe at a family dinner or a holiday and kind of glean some of the history? Because you are her legacy. Both of you are, but you and your cousins are her jewels in her eye. So tell us about your personal connection and relationship with her.
So my relationship with my grandmother has definitely grown so much as I've gotten older. We've definitely had the conversations where we sit and she just going on about how she's so proud of the accomplishments that me and my cousin have both made. I definitely see the joy in her eyes, and that's something that I want to continue to see as she, starts to age, and I want to continue to make her proud and everything. But getting closer to my grandmother has definitely been a true joy. Even though I'm here in New Orleans, sometimes it may be hard just getting a phone call maybe once a week sometimes, just because sometimes I'm really, really busy. But I do try to make an effort to be able to talk to her more, sit on the phone maybe for 30 minutes, maybe an hour, but to just sit and really hear her stories from the past really motivates me and continues to motivate me to continue to try and make her proud.
So you mentioned your grandfather, and Terry, we know you guys lost The Rock, who adored Pat Bivens, Frank Bivens, over the last year and a half or so. So again, as we talk about age-friendly care and what Dr. Ivy has guided us to think about the desires of our aging parents, have you guys had those conversations? Have you sat down and talked about the medical directives? Have you sat down and talked about, okay, mom, this may be when you stop driving. We know control is a big part of this. I'm thinking about myself. I don't know what my boys are going to do with Pat Sams because that's a whole lot. And so have you all had the various conversations? Will she continue to live with, or is she, my mother had her home for 7 years, but lived with my sister and would come visit with me on the weekends and then go sit at her own house for the afternoon and read a book and then say, all right, come get me, because she didn't really want to live there anymore. So tell us about that. How do those conversations go?
I'll tell you, Pat, they differ each time we have them, right? And I think what's interesting is there are times when I'm not certain if she wants me involved in her business or stand on the sidelines on the perimeter because she feels like I've got this, right? And I think that that's where the balance comes from, is just because she is so very independent, there's difficulty at times as her daughter to really know how involved I need to be. It can be pretty challenging to balance that behavior. Remembering that I only have one mom, And my goal is to ensure that she has a quality of life that is, multidimensional, that she has a good emotional and physical, financial, and social well-being. I really try to talk to her about all of those things when we have time. But there are times, I think, when it feels a little like sometimes there's tension because I don't want to step on her toes. As as an intellectual adult, you're not sure really how far to go sometimes. So I think that that's been a big challenge. It's interesting that, and I'm gonna probably date myself, but there are times when I think I've been reminded that sometimes I have to ask permission instead of forgiveness. And sometimes we say that in reverse, but I know that, there used to be a game called Mother May I. And in that game, right, the mother would call to a child and ask them to do something, right? So for example, hey, Terry or Kim's my sister in Louisiana, take 2 giant steps forward. And by the way, I need to book a flight. Well, does that mean that you want me to book the flight for you? Or are you going to book the flight, right? And so we have to ask for permission, because if we then take the initiative to do it, are we taking away her independence? And if we don't do it, are we now not sensitive to her needs? And so I think that that balance has become something that I am growing more and more accustomed to, is that I still need to check on what it is that she truly needs. I think, when you mentioned Frank, I think that was a big eye opener for us. And we woke up because their lives together was so strong. They're best friends, as most, long-term marriages are, best friends, and they did everything together. And so much of what I needed to do, or what we needed to do to care for them, was masked because they're a married couple. And so the things that I'm doing now, potentially Frank was doing, and I didn't know that there was a need. And the things that she's done for Frank, no one would have known, because as a married couple, they did it for one another. So I think when one spouse leaves, I think it really pulls back the veil of what needs to be done and what was being done as a married couple. And again, I'm learning this process as well since Frank's passing. There's so many factors that I, now realize are right out in front that I should have seen earlier. The loneliness, certainly some depression, the need for companionship. All of those things happen after a death. But then as you're aging, I think it is compounded. So I did hear what Dr. Ivy said. I love the fact that she talked about the mobility and the medication. From a mobility standpoint, my mom, Miss Pat to most, she had knee surgery a while back. And so that in itself changed her mobility. And so now you add on top of that multiple medications. To really understand what the adverse effect of those medications are to her as she ages, to her with with knees that are already troubling. It definitely is compounded. So it has really made me understand in a different perspective what it is that she needs. I think we've discussed things like her future living arrangements between my sister and I. We've discussed medical directives, although that one is still out for discussion, because we kind of teeter-totter back and forth on that one. But I would think daily, I think daily, Pat, what we talk about the most is healthy meals and healthy meal prep. And so there was a time when Frank was alive, I would cook big meals on Saturday so that they'd have meals throughout the week. And I think what happens is, as we age, and especially if we live alone, sometimes we don't want to cook big meals, big healthy meals. It's just easier to run to, somewhere, a fast food restaurant, and get something that's delicious, hot and ready, versus making, prepping for a big meal. So I think that for us right now is the day-to-day activity that tends to be somewhat challenging. I know I said a lot, but I was just trying to answer your question around Frank.
No, that was good. That was really good, Terry. And we've not even talked anything about the pandemic. And we talked a little bit, Dr. Ivy and I, about how the pandemic has really eclipsed so much. But this still is a relevant topic. It's a relevant issue. It's a real thing, as they say. So when you talk about getting them to do as much as they can do or will do, and how you balance that, I often think, and I don't know what the actual saying is how your parents love you, give you birth, and bring you into this world, and then how those roles kind of reverse a little. So are you seeing that? And is that what you mean when you say you ask permission because you recognize the respect piece, because she's always been your mother some
Absolutely.
79 years, or not 79, as long as you've been here.
That's right. That's right.
She's been your grandmother, Jalen. But I asked this question really for both of you, as it relates to her being your grandmother, Jalen. But at some point, you see it real time playing out of you living in a different state even than your mother. Can you speak to all of that, the pandemic, and then the whole role reversal?
Yeah, so definitely the pandemic, it was scary, especially for an elderly grandparent, even for my mom, just reminding them, hey, wash your hands more often, even though you come in, you wash your hands from coming outside, but hey, I need you to really wash your hands more often. I need you to wear your mask. I need you to stay inside more often. That's really more for my mom. I need you to stay inside a little bit more often than you normally would. But with all of the circumstances, with all the different variants, everything continuously changing, I'm definitely in more communication with my grandmother and with my mother about their medications, about their health, trying to get them to really be as vigilant as possible with this pandemic, just so that they remain safe, for themselves and for others.
And Pat, I think one of the things, and Jalen has been a big proponent of this, is, to ensure that her grandmother got her booster shot on time, and just making sure that we keep track of all of the different dates, keep track of what the CDC is saying, really understand some of the changes going on in healthcare. And I'll tell you, for Miss Pat, for my mom, she likes to stay close to home anyway. And so I think the challenge from just an aging perspective is exercise. And so how do you, as you're aging, because no one wants to get out and walk 5 miles or 4 miles, and so how do you maintain a healthy lifestyle in eating right and exercise and some social activities as you are not feeling your best, right? So I think that's where I'm seeing her some decline, and she and I've had conversations about it, about you got to get out there, you still have friends, but the pandemic stopped that. So even if there was an opportunity to go to lunch with a girlfriend, our elderly should not be in restaurants, right? They shouldn't be doing some of that because of the spread of the coronavirus. So I think it's certainly it's not just isolated to this conversation, it is global. And so how do we get our aging parents the exercise that they need, the social activities that they need? And I think that's certainly a question. I know that Dr. Ivy talked about some of that as well.
So Terry, you're not quite there. I'm not quite there. And you're younger than me, but we're getting there, right? So I'm starting to have a lot of conversations with my sons. And Jalen, I'm jealous because your mother has you. I have 2 young men that are adults that are going to have to navigate this. And they're going to be like, Mom, just sit over there, whatever. I don't know, do something. How are you preparing for your golden years? You're like in a sandwich generation. You have this fabulous adult here, but you're still caring for that mom, and you guys just do a lot together. So how are you preparing for those golden years, and How are you filling your cup, Terry? How are you filling your cup?
Yeah, Pat. And, you and I've talked about filling our cups, both busy, always busy women. And some of it is intentional. And I think some of it is just organically there. Balance is not easy. And again, you and I've had that conversation. But I think because every day is very different, especially in my new work day, that is now a work from home time. And that has also been a big change in my life, because I was going into an office, very social, and I loved it because, I'm that type A personality. I'm moving and shaking and talking to folks, and I absolutely loved it. And now I've been home for almost 2 years, and I too am isolated. And so for, a good part of 10 hours in the day, I'm at home alone, working. And so my workday changes. And because my work schedule changes, my schedule with my elderly mother changes. So I try very hard to call her every morning. And we probably talk 10 times a day, right? About nothing, just checking in. How are you doing? You doing okay? How you feeling? But we, ritualistically, I call her every morning to check on her. And what I think has happened is, because of work from home, and most career women would probably agree with me, is we began working much earlier than we ever did, because our commute was, a few, 30, 40, 50 minutes into somewhere, and you'd had that quiet time, but you'd get into the office and then you're there. Now my commute is from my bedroom to my home office, and it's, 10 steps away, and I check one email and boof, poof, I'm into my workday, and could be into it as early as, 6:37 in the morning. Now, I've tried not to do that, but what that does to my schedule with my mother then changes, right? So I began having conversations with people who are the other people who are early risers. And then I go into a work mode, and then I look at my watch and it's 11 o'clock. I haven't talked to my mother, and that's not acceptable. And so I find that this new work from home life has changed how I care, and maybe others care, for their elderly parents. I think career travel plans, although they were changed during COVID, I'm seeing more and more of that ramp up. So as I began to travel more for my paying job, my concern is first of my mother. I don't want to leave her more than X days. I want to make sure someone's there to check in on her and make sure that she's doing well. So I think that is the balance. And, considering her, is her current health well right now? Does she have any appointments that she needs me to go with her on? And so all of those things, I think, go into how maybe a career person or a sandwiched generation balances that. And then certainly on the other spectrum, I have a young adult who is definitely amazing and does great things, but I want to share with her. I don't necessarily want to still kind of guide and do those things for her, but I want to share in those experiences with her, because she's still my daughter. And I love to see that smile on her face. So trying to balance that is difficult. I think some of the things that I guess fill my cup are, and filling my cup will always be with my family. I absolutely love that family gatherings, but just kind of getting away on my own. I found that, just taking some day trips, some weekenders have really helped me to kind of clear my head and kind of get back to center. And I do enjoy that. Unfortunately, my first love, which is, retail therapy, I've had to bring that down some. One, I don't have a need for as many clothes, but two, because of the pandemic, right? So you have these things that I think used to really bring me joy, just get out, mindless shopping, just window shopping, looking for things or letting something look for me. I don't really get a chance to do that as much as I'd love. But I do like to do other things. I love to paint. I like to read. I love to, organize things around the house, and I do it 1,000 times. I change up a room. So I think those things still make me feel good. But ultimately, it is being with my family. So I don't know if I answered your question,
You
Pat.
did. You did. And word to Miss Jalen. Jalen, as you are launching your life and your career, and you're setting your own parameters. They call you a millennial. I think your mom's a Gen Xer. I go back and forth between baby boomer and Gen Xer, and your grandmother is firmly a baby boomer, right? How do you see your generation now leaning in? You're medically inclined, but your friend groups, your sorority sisters, and other folks that you talk with, how do you see them leaning in at this time with this kind of subject in healthcare and aging friendly?
So I definitely see with my generation, things are a little different. So with aging and healthcare, it's a lot more focused on social media. We get a lot of information from social media. Um, we promote a lot of things on social media. We learn a lot of things on social media. So with that plays a great aspect. It can be good or bad sometimes, not knowing, what may be the truth. So being able to go back and really research some more and find out the true meanings and what's real, what we need to really do, going back and doing that research to be able to teach our mothers and our grandmothers. So I'll learn a lot from school or something that I heard, and I'll go back and talk to my mom about it. Hey, mom, be on the lookout for this. They're talking about this new variant, or they're talking about these new symptoms. I remember back last year when it was a new symptom with COVID that you could lose your sense of smell or a sense of taste. That wasn't one of the first symptoms when COVID first started, but then learning about that from social media of all places. Hey, mom, now they're saying that you may lose your sense of smell, and not knowing that beforehand, being able to help and tell her things like that could really help and help not only her but also my grandmother. So I would think with my generation, we have big shoes to fill. But I am looking forward to doing so. I'm looking forward to helping my mom and my grandmother both in their aging process. I do have a lot of work to do, and definitely big shoes to fill for my mother.
Couldn't end this in a more beautiful way. It's like that picture you have back there. I've been checking it out on your dresser.
Oh, thank
Absolutely
you.
beautiful.
I painted it.
Yeah, did you?
I
I
did.
heard for the first time that your mom's a painter. Who knew that? I didn't know that. That's because we too busy and we running around, and I never sitting still long enough, Miss Terry, to paint. But that was beautiful, Jalen. You are beautiful inside and out. And I think your mother definitely has nothing to worry about as it relates to how you're going to help care well for her and help her live well into her golden years. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
to the
you, Pat.
Covenant this morning. And thank
you.
you all for just being the role models that you are. Love you both. Bye-bye. Beautiful, 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 powerful women empowering other women on this very important and relevant topic around aging parents living well and caring for our aging parents. Now, I had the privilege of sitting down earlier this week and talking again with Dr. Ivy. Dr. Evelyn Ivy Mongi is a geriatric hospitalist. She is a doctor that is an internal medicine doctor out of Annapolis, Maryland, and a geriatric doctor, and a wealth of information around this topic of aging well and caring for our aging parents. And I want to share that conversation with you now. Welcome back to the Sister Covenant Studio, Dr. Ivy. Join me. How are you?
Good. Hi, Pat. It's good to see you. I'm glad to be back, and I'm looking forward to our discussion this afternoon.
Yes. Well, 2 weeks ago, we started this conversation around caring for our aging parents and age-friendly care. And you were just so informative in helping us navigate and unpack what that actually looked like. And aging well. And I'll put myself in that category. And you said it best. It's what we deposit in ourselves during our 40s, 50s, and I'm going to say early 60s is what's going to make the difference as we continue on our life cycle and the quality of life that we experience. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about memory loss, because we know that too, right? That's a part of getting a little older. You lay your keys down and then you're like, oh my gosh, what happened to my keys? Or even worse, you're in the mall for 4 hours and you come out and you're like, what happened to my car? Where is my car? And you realize I parked on the other side of the mall. It wasn't on this side of the mall. So how do we define memory loss, something diagnosed, or is it just getting older? Can you help us with that, Dr. Ivy?
Absolutely, Pat. That's a great question. So all of us, as we age, we will have some memory loss. It's normal to be a little more forgetful as we age. It's normal to, as you very well explained, put your keys down and forget where they were. Or, in this day and age, our cell phones, it's in the purse, but you think you left it on the kitchen table. So part of aging is also, our brains are aging with our bodies. And so we will have some degree, some level of some mild memory loss. However, that kind of normal aging process where you forget and then can quickly remember, and more importantly, it does not affect your functioning, and you are otherwise able to do everything for yourself and to live well in the community. That's normal. We are going to be a little more forgetful, and people adapt to that. They write lists. They become creatures of habit. So they know when I come out of the car, I'm just going to put my keys in my purse. I'm going to put my purse, on the kitchen table. And so I'm not going to forget, or at least I have some clues and some cues to remind me where things are. So that's normal. And it does not affect behavior. It doesn't affect functioning. And this person can go about their normal lives and they can laugh about it. So that's what I would say about normal aging and memory loss as far as normal aging is concerned.
So Dr. Ivy, we hear the terms dementia or Alzheimer's, and it's kind of a catch-all, it seems as though, but I'm sure it isn't. I'm sure there is some distinct differences between the two. So could you help us understand the difference between those two forms of memory loss?
Sure. So dementia is not a normal part of aging. Dementia is a word that describes in general a group of disorders that affect cognitive functioning, which is your memory, your ability to recall things, they end up affecting your functioning, affecting your ability to place yourself in space, spatial recognition, things like that. So your cognitive functioning is affected, and it's a progressive group of disorders, and they are, in the end, very severely limiting in terms of function. So they are not normal. It is not part of the normal aging process. It's a significant decline in memory and other functions of your brain. And these diseases can be diagnosed and defined very clearly and distinctly from normal aging and memory loss that's associated with normal aging. And in between dementia and normal aging is a group or a disorder that is called mild cognitive impairment. And that is a zone in which people have some memory loss that is apparent to their family members and maybe even to themselves, but it does not become as severe as dementia. So it's not normal aging, it's not as severe as dementia, and it may or may not progress to dementia. So people can find themselves in that sort of a gray zone, maybe in terms of describing it, where your memory loss is a little bit more than normal, but it is not severe enough to limit functioning, and this person can go ahead and continue to live well in the community if they have some assistance once that disorder has been recognized. So I think the spectrum of memory loss, if we want to look at it that way, starts with this normal aging, normal memory that comes with aging. It doesn't affect functioning. People can adapt. People can tend to remember what they had forgotten. They can find tools to help them, and that's sort of normal. And then you have mild cognitive impairment, in which there is just a little bit more forgetfulness than we would like. However, it does not significantly impair functioning. Some of these people may progress to dementia, and some may not. They may just remain in that mild cognitive impairment level. And then you have the dementias, and these are a group of disorders that severely affect the brain and end up affecting functioning.
So, Dr. Ivy, where does Alzheimer's fit into those categories of memory loss?
Very good question. So, Alzheimer's dementia is a specific kind of dementia that is named after the gentleman who described it in the early 1900s, and it is a neurodegenerative disorder. It is the most common type of dementia, and it is progressive and does end up severely limiting function. So Alzheimer's dementia affects people usually over the age of 65. Age and family history are your two major risk factors. So what does that mean? That as you grow older, your risk for developing Alzheimer's dementia increases just by a function of age. In fact, up to about 45% of patients over the age of 85 years old have Alzheimer's dementia. So it is the most common type of dementia. In the US, we have about 5.5 million people living with dementia, and that number is expected to increase as high as 13.8 million by 2060 if we have no cure for dementia found. So it is a significant medical problem for older adults. So age is one of the risk factors, and then the other risk factor is family history. So what does that mean? If you have first-degree family members, meaning parents or siblings who have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia, it does put you, the individual in that family, at a slightly higher risk for developing Alzheimer's dementia.
So I have to ask this question. How do we slow it down? You hear about supplements, foods that you can eat, do a crossword puzzle a day. What do we do to slow down these processes?
So I think that that's a very good question. There are many things to think about in terms of improving our cognition or our cognitive abilities. We don't really see people who have dementia improve over time, but we can sort of if we have an early diagnosis, you can adapt people's lifestyles and other medical conditions can be well managed so that this person does not progress as quickly. However, at some point, everybody with Alzheimer's dementia eventually declines to the severe stages of dementia. And it is a life-limiting illness in and of itself, and of course, because of other related medical conditions that come up. So what can you do? I think the number one thing that we should encourage people is that if you see a family member, your parent, an older aunt or somebody in your family is starting to have some memory issues, you should encourage that person to seek medical attention right away. Why? Because early diagnosis helps them, and it also helps the family to take better care of themselves and the rest of the family as well as they journey through dementia. And I do want to point out that people actually notice things, and I think that we may put off going to see the doctor about it, but I want to encourage everybody that, you know, people will say, oh, my mom has been, you know, we'll talk and she'll ask the same question several times in the same conversation. So something that you talked about 5 minutes ago, she brings it up again as if it's a completely new question. And family members quickly pick this up and they say, oh, something is wrong. Sometimes the first things that people notice might even be somebody wandering off. So, you know, they walk out of the house and they just wander off in a different direction. And, you know, there's a frantic search to bring them back. You know, those are some of the things you could look for. Or a family member who is able to usually drive from point A to point B. It could be from home to church and back, from home to the grocery store, or from, you know, one of another family member's home to their home. They've done this. They can do, you know, they could usually do this with their eyes closed, so to speak. But now suddenly they got lost. And sometimes it's the police or a neighbor or a good Samaritan that ends up bringing them home. So if you see anybody in your family starting to experience things like that, you do want to go in and see the doctor to evaluate them further for dementia. So all this to say, number one is early recognition of the symptoms. Do not just attribute them to age. Go in and get an evaluation. Then what else can you do to help with the management of dementia? Treating the other medical conditions that are associated or that increase the risk of memory loss is important. So if somebody has high blood pressure, getting their blood pressure treated well. If somebody has diabetes, making sure that their diabetes treatment is optimized. If somebody is overweight and they're able to still exercise in some way, they should be encouraged to exercise. They should be encouraged to move as much as possible. If also taking the loved one to be evaluated can help to make a diagnosis of depression, which sometimes can cloud the picture for dementia. And so it's important to have this patient evaluated, because if there is an element of depression, we can treat the depression, and that can help improve the symptoms of dementia. Or maybe it wasn't even dementia or cognitive impairment, it was actually severe depression, because some of the symptoms overlap. And so you want to get your loved one in to be evaluated, screened for dementia, screened for depression, and treated for any other medical conditions into the best of their capacity, so that this person can live as well as they can for as long as they can.
So, Dr. Ivy, I've noticed some slight memory deficits. I may have a grandmother who had been diagnosed with dementia, some form of dementia. What supplements, what foods, what can I do to slow this down so I can keep it at bay? Is there anything we can actually do?
So that's a good question. I think specifically addressing supplements, people have been drawn to natural remedies because they're attractive to us because they sound safe, healthy, wholesome. And so people want to try these so-called natural or alternative methods of treatment. We don't have any good clinical studies that have shown that taking these supplements actually prevents dementia or delays the progression of the disease in hardcore clinical terms. So what do I mean by a clinical trial? Where you give somebody the supplements, so say, for example, vitamin E or ginkgo biloba, and then you follow those people and see whether if they had early dementia, did it not progress, or what happened to them. So we don't have very clinical data that says that these supplements actually prevent the progression of the disease. So it's important to consider that supplements in and of themselves are not FDA approved. They are sold as a part of food. And so they don't have to undergo the rigorous scientific scrutiny that a new medication coming to market does. And so they remain in that category that is not scientifically scrutinized. And so we also don't always know what's in the supplement. And there is an expectation that if they are marketing a certain amount of vitamin E in something, that's what it is, but it may or may not be. So that's one thing. They're not subjected to the same scientific rigor. Secondly, even though they're so-called natural, they still have interactions with some of the medications that our older people are taking, or even younger people. So for example, if you have a condition called atrial fibrillation, and you are taking a blood thinner to prevent stroke, and then you take a supplement that may increase bleeding, especially when taken together with the blood thinner that you're taking, well, that might be a problem for you. Very important, if you are considering taking any supplement, anything over the counter, anything that is natural or homeopathic, to come to your primary care visit or your cardiology visit, whoever your doctors are, and let them know the supplements you are considering to take, because you might end up in trouble thinking that they are natural and not harmful, but they may have drug interactions with your other medications that you need for your known medical diagnosis, and that might land you in trouble. So, there's a lot of supplements that are marketed direct to consumer marketing. We have the commercials running on our televisions. And I would really encourage a discussion between you and your primary care provider, if you're seeing a neurologist, whoever you're seeing, to talk about if this supplement will work for you. I cannot make a blanket statement that they're all bad. But we do need to think carefully about the supplement you take, and especially in conjunction with other medical therapies you're already taking. So that's one thing about the supplements. But there are very many other things you can do if you know that in your family there is a risk of dementia for you. So one, you should make healthy food choices. Like we said in our last podcast, eat a rainbow. If you can have as many fruits and vegetables as you can and avoid highly processed foods, that will be excellent for your brain health. Exercise. Exercise is wonderful. It's wonderful for your joints. It's great for your digestive system. It's great for your brain. And so if you're looking for a way to protect your brain, exercise, exercise, exercise. And any amount of exercise is good. A walk, a run, a bike ride. Do what you can. Do it consistently, 30 minutes every day, 5 days a week. You will be helping your brain, your heart, your muscles, your joints. You can't go wrong. And then thirdly, if you have any medical conditions, like we have said, if you have high blood pressure, take your medications. Make sure your blood pressure is well controlled. If you have diabetes, take your medications. Make sure your diabetes is under control. But if you do diet and exercise, a healthy diet and regular exercise, then you will find that even the high blood pressure improves, the diabetes improves, your sleep improves. What's not to like?
So, Dr. Ivy, what advice would you leave us with for the caregiver? We've talked about caring for our aging parents and our loved ones. What advice do you have for the caregiver to be kind to themselves and love themselves while they're caring for that loved one?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that circling back to early diagnosis, I think that in itself is helpful to caregivers. Because if you know way in advance that my parent that I am going to be taking care of, or that our family needs to decide how to take care of, has early dementia, there are many things you can put in place. And I want to go back to something I was talking about in our first part of the podcast, and that is advanced care planning. Advanced care planning is helpful for patients, but it is also very helpful for their caregivers and their families. Usually the same, most of the time the caregiver and the family member, are one and the same person. Why do I say this? Because if you know what your parents' wishes are, then you are better placed to take care of them. If you don't know, then you're sort of experiencing caregiver stress because you're hoping that the choices you're making for them when they're in a condition that they cannot make choices for themselves is the right one. And that causes a lot of caregiver distress because they hope they're doing the right thing for mom. They hope they're doing the right thing for dad. We never talked about this. I don't know what they would have said about this because we just never talked about it. So I cannot emphasize enough the importance of an advance directive in the setting of dementia, because eventually this person will lose their ability to participate in complex medical discussions. And so when things come up, it falls back on the caregivers and they have to make decisions. And if they've never had the conversation, then of course we can all understand how distressing that is to caregivers. So I think that's one thing that we all can do that helps both patients and caregivers. But looking at our caregivers themselves, one is familiarize yourself with the resources in the community. Get to know the local Department of Aging. They have resources, they can direct you where to go and how to manage your older parent with dementia in the community. The Alzheimer's Association is a fantastic association. They have local chapters. You just need to find out where your local, if you go on their website, if you just type Alzheimer's Association, put in your zip code or your county or your state, the local chapter that you can access will be readily available. They have a wonderful website, very useful tips for patients, for caregivers and families. And so if you have a patient, if you have a family member diagnosed with early dementia, you want to get connected with the Alzheimer's Association. They're a supportive organization. They are present in the community, and they can really be a resource for caregivers. Get to know those readily available local resources for you. And then also, family members need to, think about respite care. And again, that's where your local Department of Aging can help. So, and this comes into play when people are more severely affected by their dementia and they need, around the clock care. Then in that case, the person taking care of them can get exhausted physically, emotionally, and they need a break. And so if you can find out where respite care can take place, so this would be a place where you can take your loved one, they can stay there over the weekend, for example, and you as a caregiver can have a break, you can get a chance to travel, or even just rest at home, put some things together in order so that you can renew and rejuvenate yourself. And then, the other principles of good health apply to the caregiver too. Eat healthy, exercise when you can, and, look after your own health. Do not neglect your own health. And that's one thing that caregivers tend to do is they miss their appointments. They don't pick up their medications. They forget to take their own medications because they are so engrossed in the care of their loved one. And so, we want to send a gentle reminder that you need to take care of yourself so that you can be healthy and able to take care of your loved one.
So, Dr. Ivy, we talked a lot about how we manage the medical side of this, but there are other components that are very important that go into the planning of aging parents and loved ones and how we care for them. I think in the last podcast, I even mentioned that my husband and I recently got a medical directive and took the time over the Christmas break to talk to our adult sons about our wishes. Can you talk with us a little bit about that piece and what you've seen in the hospital setting around this sometimes touchy and maybe even taboo conversation?
I think that's an excellent question and one that needs to be discussed with any aging parent or family member, but especially when people have dementia. And I'm really proud of you for doing that with your husband, sitting and getting an advance directive and taking the time over the holidays to speak to your children about it. And now they know what mom and dad's wishes are, and that's fantastic. And we would like this to be the case in every clinical scenario that we find ourselves in as doctors and nurses and other healthcare providers taking care of patients with dementia. And unfortunately, we don't always find this as the case. And I think that I just want to put a plug in here for advanced care planning, not just a medical directive, but also estate planning and planning. And why does this come up in a discussion regarding dementia? Because as we've talked about, dementia is a cognitive impairment disorder. And what happens when your cognition is impaired in a progressive manner, as we see in dementia, you are not going to be able to take care of your finances. And what ends up happening is family members realize that the patient isn't managing their checkbook properly. They may be financially vulnerable to people who can, take money from them, and they wouldn't know that that has happened. They're not able to pay their bills on time, etc. And so because they lose this function of managing their own finances, it becomes critical for family members around them to come up with a plan for how their aging parent with dementia will have their finances managed. And this is where it goes out of my area of expertise into the legal world, and where people are now need to discuss appointing a financial power of attorney. And this is somebody who the patient should trust to manage their monies in a way that is consistent with their wishes and how they would manage their money if they had the ability to continue doing it, but is now limited because of the dementia. And it is very important to emphasize this, because that's why early diagnosis is important. So if we start to see memory lapses in our loved ones, let's not push it off. Let's not wait 6 months. Let's not wait a year. Let's not wait until they got lost driving to do something about it. Let's do something about it today. Get them diagnosed early, and while they're still able to tell us to tell you as a family member, as a caregiver, what they want, how they want their money managed, who they trust, then you can seek the elder attorneys who can help with the designation of a financial power of attorney and what that entails for the person assigned and for the patient whom they're taking over their finances. And the other aspect too, that's also a little bit outside the medical field, but definitely comes into play when we are taking care of patients, is estate planning. And so when people have not thought about this in advance, put their affairs in order, written a proper will, maybe even discussed it with their families if they're comfortable to do that, then you find that when the unfortunate diagnosis of dementia enters the picture, then now you have a patient who cannot tell their wishes, who cannot participate in complex legal decision making, and now they have an estate that hasn't been planned, and that leaves the patient and the family vulnerable and open to losses that they didn't need to experience. And so I think that again, the early diagnosis of dementia is extremely helpful so that people can make these plans. Please consider, early diagnosis as a gift to your family, as a gift to yourself, because then in that situation, you're able to put together an advanced direct medical wishes, appoint a healthcare power of attorney, which family member would take over making decisions for you. Obviously, people think of their spouse, but if your spouse is not there or not able to participate, then who else? And so you can think about those things early in the clinical diagnosis. And then you can think about the financial power of attorney, as we've talked about, and also the estate planning at large. And so I think it's important to involve the legal fraternity, a lawyer you trust, someone who's familiar with elder law, so that they can come in and discuss these things with the person affected with the dementia and their family, and get things in order for better care for our patients.
Important information. Can't underestimate the importance of this piece of the planning process. So, Dr. Ivy, I have to end it with this question. How do you fill your cup to ensure that you are whole and healthy and well, so you can take care of this important population of people?
Thank you for that question, Pat. So one of the things I do is I have great family support. My husband is very supportive of me, and I have somewhere to come and de-stress and find support to renew my strength and my energy back to work, especially with a difficult day. So family support and love is very important to me. The other thing is spiritual wellness and spiritual fulfillment. And so we are active members of our church. We have a church we call home, people that pray with and for us, people that pray for me specifically, depending on the challenges we're facing at work. And so I find that my spiritual nourishment and fulfillment helps to renew my energy, refocus my purpose, so that I can keep going even when the going gets tough. And then the other thing, like I tell everybody, is exercise. So in the summer, spend time walking. We have a park close to with a excellent trail, and so we walk 3-4 times a week, and it really just refreshes and renews me and re-energizes me. I have also not been doing too good with this, but trying to do yoga at home. This was something I did all the time pre-COVID, and of course with the pandemic, all of the studios closed and everything came to a halt, and so trying to renew that practice at home, because it is really great exercise for strengthening, for stretching, for relaxing, for meditating. And I love it. And when I can have the discipline to do it, I reap great benefits from yoga. So those are some of the things I do to renew my energy and fill my cup.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ivy. Your passion is evident. It shows in all you do, and you talking about this population of patients that you love and you care for. We thank you for what you're doing, and especially during this kind of time where it is stressful with this pandemic. But we know that this population is dear to us, and one day we too will be there, and we're hopeful that someone will, like yourself, will care for us and help us with friendly care, aging friendly care. Thank you, Dr. Ivy.
Thank you so much, Pat, for having me, for the opportunity to talk about these very important topics. And hopefully our conversation will help somebody and encourage them in their journey and maybe point them in the right direction. So thank you very much.
Most certainly. Take care. Wow. Powerful conversation. And I hope and pray that it is empowering to some women, family members, and our community. Again, this is a topic that we must talk about more and more and more, especially with our loved ones, so they can firmly be a part of the conversation. Not easy, but it is a part of life and a part of living well. So, my sisters, I thank you for being a part of this village and being a part of my life and the life of the Sister Covenant. So share this podcast with all your friends, because we all can learn and benefit and share in the discussion. So as always, my sisters, be bold, be brilliant, be brave and beautiful. You all are. And be blessed.